naturally, we salute the Godfather as we begin our show today, the Godfather of heavy metal. And if we're being honest, I don't think it comes as a terrible surprise that Ozzy Osbourne has passed away. He was obviously in failing health, but 76 is an age at which it feels just too young, and somebody that made such an impact on the music scene is certainly someone who will be missed. The tributes have been pouring in since we got the news yesterday afternoon that Ozzy Osbourne, the frontman of Black Sabbath and known as the Godfather of heavy metal music, passed away at the age of 76. How legendary does someone have to be kicked out of the heavy metal band they were a part of just because they lived that life of excess too excessively, if you will? Too much partying, too many missed gigs, or late showing up for rehearsal was Ozzy Osbourne when Black Sabbath said, you know what, we gotta part ways. And Ozzy was fine with that because he went on to his own very successful solo career, which included the Blizzard of Oz tour, which has a local connection that I'll get to in just a moment. But this was the man himself, Ozzy Osbourne, just a year ago upon induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
You know what? I can't believe I'm here myself. You know what I mean? Firstly, let me get the thank yous out of the way, because I'm not going to bore you with a long, drawn-out f***ing monologue. I'd like to thank whoever voted me into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for my solo work. A great thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I really, thank you. And more so, my fans have been so loyal to me over the years. I cannot thank them enough. But I want to spend one thing for a guy by the name of Randy Rhoads. Because if I hadn't met Randy Rhoads, I don't think I'd be sitting here now. And more than that, my wife Sharon saved my life. And my grandbabies and I love them all. So, with all that, I'm going to get on with the show and hand it back to Jack.
Thank you, Ozzy. Thank you for existing, you legend. We love you. Let's hear it for Ozzy.
Thank you for existing. Jack Black, who introduced Ozzy Osbourne at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony. That Blizzard of Oz tour in the early 1980s, 1981 to be exact, came right through the city of Kitchener and our center in the square. One of the very first major rock tours to come through the center in the square, when the center in the square itself was but a baby. So we remember Ozzy on our show today.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
all right, let's get to that Farwell Show 5 for this Wednesday morning, the 23rd of July. Number one, regional police have identified a person of interest in a weekend stabbing in Waterloo. The man has not been identified as a suspect, but police have released his photo. You can see that at kitchener.citynews.ca. Police say the man should not be approached if you see him. Instead, call 911 immediately. A 24-year-old Cambridge man and a 28-year-old man from Waterloo were hospitalized after the stabbing early Sunday morning. Number two, the Hometown Home Run Project to create an accessible baseball diamond in Cambridge is still swinging. City Council hearing last night that it might still be possible to get grant money from the Jays Care Foundation. The city has also created a donation portal for community support. Now, you can find that link on our show's Facebook page, facebook.com/The Mike Farwell Show. I've had the chance, selfishly, and if you'll just allow me this moment, I've had the chance to do some work with the Buddy League over the years, and this is just one of the most inspirational group of athletes you'll ever have the pleasure of meeting. Their games, their league is so much fun. It truly is making the game accessible for all. So I made a donation through that portal at the City of Cambridge website. And again, you can do the same. You can check out the page for yourself and learn more just by visiting our show Facebook page, facebook.com/The Mike Farwell Show. Now, it's going to cost $3 million overall. I'm not expecting us just here, the 65 listeners that we have on the show, okay, to get us to $3 million. But Jay's Care, the community in general, plus the city, all working to make the game accessible and this accessible baseball diamond at Riverside Park a reality. Let's get them there. Number 3 on the Farwell Show 5 this morning, City of Waterloo and the Uptown Waterloo BIA are partnering with the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 530 in Waterloo to launch the Veterans Banner Program in Waterloo. Commemorative banners displaying the name and photo of service members from Waterloo will be displayed along the Spurline Trail and throughout the Uptown for the weeks leading up to and including Remembrance Day. Banners are available on a first-come, first-served basis. There are currently 30 banners available. Families can sponsor a banner for a service member who has lived in Waterloo for $150. Number 4, Canada's leaders say they're not rushing to meet an August 1st trade deadline with the U.S. Prime Minister Mark Carney says his government won't sign anything unless it's the right deal for Canada. He met with the country's premiers in Huntsville this week to talk about trade negotiations as well as fast-tracking those major infrastructure projects to help the economy. Meantime, the U.S. has signed a new trade deal with Japan, a move that could impact Canada's auto industry. And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, a Canadian senator says it's past time for Canada to lower its voting age to 16, as the British government has recently done. Senator Mary Lou McPhedran says lowering the voting age from 18 to 16 would be good for democracy. McPhedran says decisions being made in Canada now will affect younger generations, and extending voting rights to younger people is really about fairness. I wonder how you feel about that idea. We're talking about it on the show this morning, just after 9:30. So you get the chance to weigh in on lowering the voting age in this country to 16. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I need to clear up something I should have cleared up yesterday and did not. And I came into the studio today with a box waiting for me, but I'm a little bit confused. I might have Rip Van Winkled my way through 8 years or so, slept. But anyway, I'll tell you why I'm confused and what the box contained. Plus, clear up that thing I should have cleared up yesterday. It's a lot's coming up. Stay with us on the Mike Farwell Show. Your wake-up call on the way on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Gathered in their masses, just like witches at black masses.
That is Black Sabbath. Opening track from their second studio album. Way back in 1970, some War Pigs, as we remember Ozzy on the day after his passing here on the show. We've been having some fun on the show. It kind of happened spontaneously this week as we've been assigning listener numbers. There's been a long-running joke, and I'm glad you found some humor in it because it was started by me just in fun. You know, I would make reference to the 30-odd listeners on the show, and that grew, and Anyway, next thing you know, I meet a fellow out at a ball hockey fundraiser on the weekend who said, I'm going to be listener number 46. And so we thought we'd fill in those 46 listeners, and we've surpassed that by assigning numbers. And please understand, this is not a ranking system. Wherever you are on the list, that's just a demonstration of your loyalty to this radio station and this radio program. And it is so very much appreciated. I got a call late in the show yesterday from John, and I should have done a better job explaining this.
I've been listening and trying to get in line because I would like number 67, Mike, if that's possible. And the only reason why I'm asking now is because I heard some people calling in and jostling numbers. Now, I've been hoping that I could call in and get on the list, the schedule, when you get to be number 65 or 66, so I could ask for 67. And you know the hockey team I cheer for. When I call in, I just want that memory of 67 to fall within your brain scan somewhere. You know what I'm trying to do, Mike, with 67.
I do know, John, what you're trying to do with 67, but I should have explained it. See, this just goes to show it's not a ranking system. You want a number, but hopefully we can get to that number. John, you see, is a fan. He's a good guy. So this just goes to show that the Hatfields and the McCoys and the Leafs fans and the fans of the team that shall not be named can get along. But John is a fan of the team that shall not be named. So he wants to be listener number 67 to this show so that when he calls and we refer to him as 67, I'm remembering 1967, which, of course, is the last time that the Leafs won the Stanley Cup. I know how you fans of the team that shall not be named operate. I get it. The joke's getting a little old, just for the record, okay? But as long as you're playing along with my joke about the number of listeners, I will play along with yours, John. Fan of the team that shall not be named, but still a decent guy. And John, you are listener number 67. Oddly enough, after adding Susie and Mark with a C to the list yesterday, we're at 65. So we only have number 66 to fill in before we get to 67 for John. So you're pretty close to actually having a complete list up to the 1967 reference in John's listener number. I came to work this morning, and I'd love to know what you think of this. I walk into the studio. There's a nice red Rogers box, because Rogers and Red kind of go hand in hand, parent company of the station. This box sitting right here waiting for me in the studio. And there's some writing on it. It says, Mike, I was cleaning and found this. Congrats on 10 years. And it's signed by my manager here at the station. Now, he's relatively new, and I wonder if he knows this, because the funny thing about this, heck, we've been doing this show for 8 years. We started in June of 2017, just on this show. But I started at this radio station in August of 2007. So next month, August of 2025 is going to, I mean, if I carry the one and I do the math, that's 18 years I've been here. But this is, and I opened the box, and sure as heck, it's a plaque commemorating my 10-year anniversary at Rogers. The thing is, 8 years late. Where were you cleaning? Like, did it get dropped behind a desk? Where has it been? There's a gift card inside. Is the gift card still going to work 8 years later? I really want to know, does my manager know that I've actually been here longer than 10 years? I don't know the answer to that, but I read this. I'm like, congrats on 10 years, but I've been here for 18. It only feels like 10, though, when you like your work as much as I do. This is the Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. One more time with feeling. We loved you, Ozzy, the godfather of heavy metal. Some Black Sabbath and Paranoid on our show this morning, the day after we learn of Ozzy Osbourne's passing at the age of 76. Just ahead of our 9:30 update in the 570 News Center, to the phones we go. Number 59, Lisa, good morning.
Hey, Mike. You know, John's a good guy, regardless of his taste in hockey teams. He was out volunteering every year at the Tyler Todd hockey tournament.
Absolutely. That's when John and I first met. Yep.
Yeah. So that's unfortunate that he has that taste, and I knew what he was needling you at yesterday, and you didn't bite, which was good. Hey, I was at one of our suppliers yesterday, and their family is Maddie Stajan's family, and I have Toronto Maple Leafs license plates, and the guys there in the back asked me what it represented. It's 05TO28, and I said, well, I mean, it's obviously a Maple Leafs plate, but I never really thought too much about that. But I said 28 would obviously be Domi, and I didn't for the life of me know who had 5. Do you know who had 5? Because I looked it up, and I was surprised I didn't know that.
Oh, shame on me then, because I can't think of a 5 off the top of my head.
It's Bill Barilko.
Oh, my gosh.
And I was really, really embarrassed myself not knowing that, but I know it now. So anytime someone asks me now, that's exactly what I'm going to tell them.
Well, thanks for embarrassing me too, 59.
Okay, have a good day, Mike.
You too, Lisa. Bye-bye. Appreciate the call this morning, as always. Let's get you that update from the 570 News Center, and then let's talk about lowering the voting age in Canada. How do you feel about 16 to cast your first ballot? So in case you missed the headline, our friends across the pond in Britain have pledged in advance of their next general election to lower the voting age from 18 to 16. And a chorus of voices has emerged suggesting that Canada follow suit and do the same thing. One of those voices is Scott Sturritz. He's the founder and CEO of Venture for Canada and the author of The Uncertainty Advantage. He also makes time for our show this morning. Scott, good morning.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Well, thanks very much for making the time. What makes you think that lowering the voting age to 16 in Canada is a good idea?
The first benefit is that it will help reinvigorate Canadian democracy. Youth turnout in Canada in elections is abysmal. Fewer than 50% of 18 to 24-year-olds voted in the 2021 Canadian federal election. And studies show that implementing a voting age of 16, the current voting age in Canada is 18, would increase young people's propensity to vote, not just in their first election, but for many elections to come. And the reason that this is that when you're 16, in most cases, you're still living with your parents, you're still living with your guardians, you're still part of the K-12 school system, you're taking a civics class. So there's a lot more structure around you when you go vote for the first time. And you're more likely to vote in your first election if that first election is around when you're 16. Versus when you're 18, 19, 20, you're much more likely to be living independent, have less structure, and less likely to vote in your first election. So in short, by lowering the voting age to 16, we significantly increase the likelihood of someone voting in their first election, which has a big impact on their likelihood to vote for many other elections to come.
What gives you the confidence, Scott, that somebody who is 16 years of age is, I'm struggling for the right word, but let's use mature enough to cast a ballot?
I think that 16-year-olds are a diverse group. So there are some 16-year-olds that are incredibly politically active and follow the news, and there are some that are not. Likewise, there are some 40-year-olds or 60-year-olds or 80-year-olds that are very politically active and others that are not.
Quit rubbing it in now, Scott. Come on.
Pardon?
Quit rubbing it in.
So I just think, ultimately we trust 16-year-olds to pay taxes if they vote. They can be tried as adults in terms of crimes. I think that 16 is a sufficient age in terms of letting someone drive. Someone should also be able to cast their ballot, particularly when you're 16. you have so much of your life ahead of you, and the decisions the government make are going to have a disproportionate impact over the course of your lifespan.
We know that Britain's decision here is not being taken in isolation. Is there evidence, though, to suggest that a lower voting age actually benefits democracy, for example?
Yeah, there's evidence from Austria where they reduced the voting age to 16 close to 2 decades ago. And since then, young people are more likely to vote. They're more likely to participate in elections long term. And the Austrian case study, which is an example of a developed economy that is, I think quite analogous to Canada, is something we really should look to. Like, there is evidence in other places that lowering the voting age to 16 increases democratic engagement long term, which is so important when democracy is under attack around the world.
I will grant you that my evidence is entirely anecdotal, having had a teenager grow up, now move off to post-secondary, having turned 18, in fact, just turned 19. But it was really interesting to me, Scott, as she got more and more engaged, thanks to classes in high school, in civic life, interested in politics, etc. And we had many a conversation over the dinner table about the political leader in Canada we affectionately, or I affectionately referred to as Juggy, as in Jagmeet Singh, because she, our teenager, absolutely loved his social media presence. Is this, if we're being honest, just something lowering the voting age, that is, something that is a partisan ploy to generate more support for the NDP, as example?
So what's interesting in the most recent federal election is young people were actually more likely to vote Conservative than any other age group. And one of the main critiques of my op-ed in the Globe and Mail were from Conservatives saying, you're just trying to stack the election so that left-wing parties win. In fact, if we lowered the voting age to 16, it would actually probably increase the pool of Conservative voters. So that's the first thing that it's, I think, really important to mention, particularly if someone's Conservative and listening in and has this reflexive opposition to lowering the voting age to 16. The second point is that there can be pandering to people of all age groups. And I think that, yes, social media can appeal to 16-year-olds, but I also know a lot of 60-year-olds who, rather than using TikTok, they can get really swayed by Facebook and other kinds of social media. So I don't think that social media influence is limited to any specific age group.
It's a great conversation, and you wrote a very thoughtful piece. I appreciate both the piece and the time you've given us on the show today. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me on.
Scott Stirrett is the founder and CEO of Venture for Canada. He's also the author of The Uncertainty Advantage, and he argues in this week's Globe and Mail that Canada should follow Britain's lead and lower the voting age to 16. I don't mean to tell tales out of school, but just to close the loop, and it actually supports exactly what Scott just said. That teenager that loved Jagmeet Singh and everything that she saw on TikTok and the image of the NDP leader, when she turned 18, which she just did, well, a year ago, as I mentioned, just now having turned 19, but when she turned 18 and was able to vote in her first federal election, she voted Conservative, just like Scott said a lot of young people were doing. And she did that because of the crime and addiction issues she saw on the streets in the community where she now lives, attending a post-secondary institution. Again, I don't mean to tell tales out of school, but that's the story. And it is entirely anecdotal. That is one civic-minded, politically engaged teenager who I happen to know very well, grew up in the house that I live in too. So there you go, as an example. So is it a partisan ploy to get more support for those progressive parties federally here in Canada? Maybe, maybe not. I suppose you could make the argument. But I'm curious more generally what you think of this idea of lowering the voting age to 16. Should Canada follow Britain's lead? Let me know your thoughts. 519-570-2545, star 570, 1-800-570-2545. 5715. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
The first benefit is that it will help reinvigorate Canadian democracy. And studies show that implementing a voting age of 16 would increase young people's propensity to vote, not just in their first election, but for many elections to come. So in short, by lowering the voting age to 16, we significantly increase the likelihood of someone voting in their first election, which has a big impact on their likelihood to vote for many other elections to come.
Scott Stirrett, the founder and CEO of Venture for Canada and the author of The Uncertainty Advantage, joins us to talk about his op-ed in this week's Globe and Mail that said, hey, Canada should follow Britain's lead and lower the voting age to 16. He makes some compelling arguments, including the one you heard right there. At the age of 16, most of these young people are still in a stable environment at home, attending high school. They've got that parental support, and it makes them more likely to cast that ballot. And then once they do that at 16, it's very much habit forming. So they are likelier to do it again and again and again. I can get behind that idea. I can buy into that argument pretty easily. However, when I consider a lowering of the voting age from 18 to 16, I'm going to be that old guy in the room because that's who I am. I'm not supportive of the idea of lowering the voting age. I just don't think most 16-year-olds are ready at that age of their life. I don't think I would have been as responsible as I thought I was at the time. In retrospect, I don't think so. And I think you need to be incredibly responsible to be trusted with a vote. If we were to move in that direction, though, I would submit to you that perhaps we also move then to treat 16-year-olds as adults in other ways. Yes, our guest did indicate that 16-year-olds can be tried as adults in courts, but it's not as a rule. They can be, but not as a rule. If you want to lower the voting age, maybe we also consider then some changes to the Youth Criminal Justice Act as well. My 2 cents on this. Let's hear yours. We go to the phones. Paul, good morning.
Morning. How you doing?
Good, thanks.
Good to hear that we both agree that kids shouldn't be voting. Are we going to put a 10-year-old behind the wheel of a car and send them down the 401?
Well, no, you have to be 16. We're not talking about 10-year-olds. We're talking about 16-year-olds.
Right, but if you're going to drop the voting age, why not drop the driving age too?
Well, I don't want to do that either.
No, they do not have the emotional maturity or the critical thinking at that age. There's 18-year-olds that shouldn't be voting.
But there are 28-year-olds and 38-year-olds and 58-year-olds that probably shouldn't be voting too.
Exactly.
Okay.
But we cannot do a means test. We know what's happened in the past on that. Myself, I've never missed an election from the time I turned 18 at any level, municipal, provincial, federal. Never missed an election. And anybody in my family, same thing. You live under my house, you vote. And that's the way it is. But to allow 16-year-olds to vote, it would become a joke. Let's get a whole pile of people together and vote for the Rhino Party or whatever it happens to be. It's going to turn into a joke if we allow people at that age to vote.
All right. I don't know that it would turn into a joke. Again, you can have block voting for any party, right? Any political stripe. So I don't know. And many said that this most recent federal election was won essentially by the boomers who got behind Mark Carney's ideas. Jim, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Mike. How are you?
Good, thank you. And you?
Good, thanks.
Good.
Yeah, I can see how some may view this as kind of party motivated. I view it as myself with kids. If I had a 16-year-old, I would probably be trying to influence their vote also at home. Then maybe it would be counting as 2 votes for a parent if their child voted in support or in agreement with them. The other comment I hear Scott make, and obviously well-versed on it, is pointing towards driving and some of the other responsibilities that adolescents and 16-year-olds get. True, but there's also a process to get that. You don't just get your driver's license or your G1 at 16. There's a process to go through and tests to be done. So maybe those at 16, 15, 17 that take a political science course or are involved with community somehow, maybe they get the right to vote, and there's a process there at the younger age. And hopefully that would encourage a lot of parents to encourage their kids to take those programs and then get that responsibility prior to the current age now. So just some food for thought. It's a great discussion. I'm interested in hearing where this goes in the years to come. So thanks for your time.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate you weighing in on that. Interesting in so far as making it like a driver's license, whereby you go through these steps before you get your full G1. I'm sorry, I don't know how the graduated licensing all works, but before you get your full license, there are steps for you to go through. Jim suggests perhaps something similar when it comes to earning the right to vote, as opposed to just arbitrarily passing a mark on the calendar. And I'm here for anything that puts a greater emphasis on civics in our school system, for sure. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. If everybody else is doing it, why not Canada? Okay, maybe not everybody else, but Britain, the latest country to say, you know what, we're going to lower our voting age from 18 to 16. And the arguments have begun for Canada to follow suit. Our guest this morning, Scott Stirrett from Venture for Canada and the author of The Uncertainty Advantage, presents a pretty compelling case to lower the voting age to 16. I'm not personally behind it. I just don't think 16-year-olds are quite ready for prime time yet, so to speak, but love to hear from you on these issues. Let's go back to the phones. Mila, good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
What do you think of lowering the voting age to 16?
Well, I heard one of the callers mention competency being a factor, and I wanted to share a personal experience. I believe it's anecdotal, but my grandmother is in long-term care facility in Guelph, a very reputable one. And several years ago, during an election, she had advised me that she voted. And I thought, that's not possible, as she doesn't leave the premises. But apparently, one of the candidates had campaigned in her unit where she resides.
So you think that gives that candidate, that party, an unfair advantage because they're going right there to target the audience?
No. As a matter of fact, my point being is that my grandmother suffers from extreme dementia and couldn't tell you the day, probably, much information about who she's dealing with or when. And I thought this might show questionable ethics on the part of the candidate if they were trying to solicit votes from people who weren't necessarily capable, mentally speaking.
Mila, I appreciate you sharing the story. Thank you very much for weighing in on the show today. I can see where you're coming from. I would assume that in a senior's residence, there are many people that you could connect with and perhaps entice to vote for you who are perfectly capable of making the decision. I've met many 90-plus-year-old who are stronger mentally than I am these days. But what Mila says goes along the lines with what Matt posts on X this morning. I have no idea if it's good, but I know I would have voted at 16, but I also paid attention to the world at 16. That said, I think there should be an age cap as well, getting into what Mila was talking about. Canada's life expectancy is approximately 82 years old, so cut off the age for voting at 75. Another interesting thought in all of this as we explore whether or not Canada should follow Britain's lead here and lower the voting age to 16. All right, it is Wednesday morning. That means we check in with the Blacklocks reporter minding Ottawa's business. But first, this piece of business from the 570 News Center on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. There is a media outlet that covers our nation's capital, and it is the only reporter-owned and operated newsroom covering Ottawa with neither politics nor punditry. All original content, and you can get your own subscription, which is well worth it, at blacklocks.ca. We are fortunate to bring some of those stories to you weekly on the show at this time with the managing editor at Blacklocks Reporter. Tom Korski joins us. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, Mike.
I want to make sure that I'm reading correctly. I've got these numbers right. We're now sitting, as of the beginning of this year, at greater than 3 million, quote unquote, temporary foreigners in Canada. Am I getting my numbers right here?
Isn't that something?
It is.
3,049,277 says a memo to the Minister of Immigration by her department staff. They do not like to discuss numbers. Typically, they speak in euphemisms or generalities. I've never seen this number before in a federal memo, Mike. So we look at these figures. This is not landed immigrants who fill out the paperwork in triplicate, wait 6 years. These are temporary permit holders, so that would be foreign students, temporary workers, or visitors. They know at least 129,000, let's round it off, say 130, are here illegally now because their permits have expired. But we asked, how many is 3 million temporary foreigners in Canada as of January? Well, that month, the private sector workforce was 16.5 million. It's the equivalent of almost a fifth of the private sector workforce in our country. And you look at that and you ask yourself, did they wonder, where will these people go? Where will they live? What will they do for a living? How do we manage this? It never came up. Those are spectacular numbers.
And the idea, I said at the beginning, quote unquote, temporary, because the idea then would be not on a permanent basis, having those jobs, looking for places to live in this country.
Sure, and the problem is the Minister of Immigration has said, I'm paraphrasing her, but accurately, Minister Diab from Halifax, she said, we run this on the honor system. When your permit expires, you head to the airport, because those are the rules. And MPs have asked her, are you kidding me? Is that your immigration management plan? Let in millions, let them shift for themselves, and with all the consequences for the job market, for entry-level jobs, let alone housing. And then when your permit expires, you can buy a road map and leave the country. That's the plan. She was asked. And why don't I quote her? What is the plan to get them to leave? Conservative MP Michelle Rempel-Garner asked in the House just before Parliament adjourned for summer. And the minister replied, we have rules in this country, and we expect people to follow the rules. And MP Rempel-Garner said, don't you get it? You can't have an immigration system on the honor basis because then you have no system. Then it's mayhem, and that's where we are.
I loved this story at Blacklocks, Tom, though I confess it does perplex me a bit. But the introduction of Sharia law into home loans in Canada, conveniently enough, just before the election?
This would be the first time Sharia law was ever introduced in any federal legislation or regulation. And of all people, Quebec MPs in particular, are wide awake on this, and they have opposed this vigorously. This is through access to information. We see the Department of Finance was really pushing this. According to CMHC, the federal mortgage insurer, we see CMHC internal memos where they say, what did one executive say? This file is moving extremely fast and is somewhat sensitive. The Finance Department is leading this work, end of quote. So the Finance Department was panting for Sharia home loan regulation. Sharia law does not abide any collection of interest. All interest is usury. That doesn't mean they get interest-free loans. It means it's a complicated arrangement of joint ownership, which CMHC warned Cabinet is a nightmare in terms of tax and liability. And they still proceeded with it. We couldn't get an answer why, but I believe that you have hit on the key. This was pre-election, and there's 1.8 million Muslim voters in this country.
Follow the voters, Tom.
It's all about the voters, isn't it? Everything is politics in this town. You know, it doesn't matter what it is. Home loans, weights and measures, the weather forecast, everything is politics.
Are we still in the business in Ottawa, Tom, of granting money, millions of dollars, to bankrupt companies?
This is a first. You know, when people say, how come Canada's not number one anymore? Not true. This is a startling initiative by the Department of Industry, as it was announced by the Minister, Melanie Joly. They actually went to bankruptcy court and gave a $1.9 million grant to producers of a festival, the Just for Laughs festival, in the industry minister's hometown, Montreal. While the producers owed creditors almost $24 million, including $1.9 million to the Business Development Bank, which is the taxpayers of Canada. To recap, they owed us to $1.9 million minimum, let alone the millions in additional grants they've received, over 15. They owe us $1.9 million on a bank loan. The minister walked into bankruptcy court and gave them a $1.9 million grant. And you say, my goodness, what sort of secret handshake would you need to pull that off? But they did.
I think you need the Montreal handshake, Tom.
You need that secret bilingual handshake.
Exactly. We've figured it out. We have figured it out. Oh, as always, sir, appreciate the work you do and the time on the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Mike.
Tom Korski, the managing editor of the Blacklocks Reporter. Check it out for yourself. It is subscription-based, blacklocks.ca. But it is the only reporter-owned and operated newsroom that covers the capital, and it's well worth what you put in to keep them doing the work that they do. Just back on that temporary foreign residents in Canada, numbering more than 3 million, and the honor system is the basis upon which we anticipate their departure from the country. Other reporting this morning has it at about $1.5 billion, the amount of money our federal government has spent on hotels, helping to support these folks who come into the country with no other place to live. They're supposed to be connected to housing and other supports through those hotel stays, but $1.5 billion and counting, one would presume, on hotel stays paid for by the federal government. All right, we're going to take a quick time out. When we come back, the stats say we, as drivers, are slowing down. Why? Well, because of those automated speed enforcement cameras, of course. We'll talk about it next on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, don't take it from me. Take it straight from the CAA, which has conducted a study that has found more drivers are slowing down for speed cameras. More drivers are being ticketed. And yes, our driving behaviors are indeed changing. Michael Stewart is a community relations consultant with CAA South Central Ontario. Joins us to talk more about it. Michael, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks very much for making the time. Automated speed enforcement, speed cameras, photo radar, whatever we call it, it is certainly a topic of conversation in our community here in the region of Waterloo since the introduction of the speed camera program. How, through your study, have you found that driver behaviors are changing given the cameras?
Yes, we recently conducted a survey of 1,500 Ontario drivers, and we did find that about a quarter of drivers have ever received an automated speed enforcement ticket, which is up from 17% in 2024. But while that number may seem high, the good news is that 73% of drivers are slowing down when they approach these cameras, and 52% do not speed up again once they pass the camera, which is up from 44% in 2023. So we are seeing that behavior shift over time. ASE won't solve speeding. It won't solve road safety overnight, but it's starting to nudge drivers in the right direction.
Do those drivers ever just avoid the roads where the cameras are altogether?
Yes, we did have about 46% of Ontario drivers who said that they are actively avoiding roads with automated speed enforcement. Now, whether that is because they chose to pick a new route because they don't want to risk being caught by a camera, or they just don't want to interact with those cameras whatsoever. If they are choosing a different route, hopefully they are still following the posted speed limit. But if these drivers do happen to be ones that maybe have a bit of a heavier foot on the pedal, the important thing is they are doing that away from our schools and our community safety zones. There are vulnerable road users there, and we really want to make sure that they are safe.
Michael, what did your survey tell you about the public support for speed camera programs?
This might be a bit of a surprise for listeners because a lot of the conversation around these cameras, I think, has been more about frustration lately. But we found in our survey that actually 73% of Ontario drivers do support these cameras, and 76% believe they do deter speeding. So the general consensus is amongst Ontario drivers that they support these cameras. I think people understand that they are around schools. They're meant to keep kids safe. They're meant to keep communities safe. And I think people are really starting to understand that. And as more cameras come up, more Ontarians are interacting with them. And sometimes getting a ticket in the mail might also just be that reminder of your driving behavior, and that something should change.
You said something there that catches my attention when you say, as more cameras come up. There is a really ambitious program here in the region of Waterloo to have 175 cameras in operation by 2028, so in the next few years. But based on what you've learned, that it's changing behaviors, it's slowing drivers down, public support does exist for the automated speed enforcement cameras. Should municipalities just continue to put as many speed cameras as possible on roads?
I think it's important to look at the roads that they're putting them on now. So as of right now, ASC or photo radar can only be used near schools and in community safety zones. And that's where we think they are the most effective. These are, whether that street is a 30, 40, or 50 kilometer speed limit, there are vulnerable road users in that area. There's small children, there's seniors, there's family living in those areas. And anything above that posted speed limit can increase your risk of a collision and severity of a crash. So as long as they are being used, CAA is supportive of them being used within community safety zones and around schools. And any further expansion beyond those types of roads, we want to make sure that there is careful consultation and discussion with the general public and make sure that their effectiveness would still be there.
Michael, I appreciate your time on the show this morning. Thank you very much for being here.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
Michael Stewart is a community relations consultant with CAA, South Central Ontario. The CAA study finds that more of us are slowing down for speed cameras, probably because more of us are being ticketed. This is as hot button an issue as exists in the region right now. And I'm here to tell you, I am supportive of the cameras insofar as their intentions to slow us down when and where appropriate. But I think we have different definitions here of when and where appropriate, what that means. For me, it sure as HE double hockey sticks doesn't mean on a Sunday afternoon in a school zone, because ain't nobody at the school. Same as, how about today? How about right now in a school zone? Last time I checked, it's still summer break. This is the area where we really need to make a change in the region. I'd love to hear from you, though, whether or not you support the speed camera program as it exists here in the region. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
We found in our survey that actually 73% of Ontario drivers do support these cameras, and 76% believe they do deter speeding. I think people understand that they are around schools. They're meant to keep kids safe. They're meant to keep communities safe. And sometimes getting a ticket in the mail might also just be that reminder of your driving behavior, and that something should change.
73% of Ontarians support automated speed enforcement, photo radar, speed cameras. So says Michael Stewart, community relations consultant with CAA, South Central Ontario. Are those the 73% of Ontarians that are yet to get a speeding ticket from a speed camera? Let's go to the phones, find out how you feel about the cameras. George, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How familiar are you with the Munch and Elgin area, just off Hespeler and Cambridge.
Yep, I know the area.
That radar there, you drive by there now, it's like a ghost town. I think a lot of people were hit, including me, at the very beginning, and everyone refuses now, unless you're going to crawl through it, everyone refuses now to drive through that area, and it's effective that way. But I'm not sure if that's what they wanted, but they're getting what they're getting now.
Yeah, George, I hear where you're coming from. And we've talked about this before when it comes to sort of the law of unintended consequences. And they've found that in the town of Fergus. I know I'm going into Wellington County, but there's a speed camera there on Bellside Avenue. I bet you if you've ever been through Fergus, you've been on Bellside, and it's caught so many people that now drivers have decided to avoid the area or the road where the speed camera is, and they go through the surrounding neighborhoods. And now neighbors are complaining about the drivers blowing through their neighborhoods in an effort to avoid the speed camera. Steve, good morning.
Yes, good morning, Mike. Mike, I'm a taxi driver, so I have a lot of experience with speed cameras. I go through them several times a day all over the place. I am 100% in support of these, and they have certainly changed my driving habits, and I'm on the road 10 and a half, 11 hours a day, and it makes you far more aware of speeds in other areas, the 50 zones, the 60 zones, and what have you. I think that overall they are a good thing.
So you're a better driver because of them?
Oh, absolutely. And Mike, you made a comment last week about how you are no longer doing the rolling stops and what have you. And I bet that has made you more conscious and more aware of what's going on the road.
You know, it's funny you say that because, and I mean it, I am that guy. I try so hard now. It does still feel weird though, you know that, Steve, to come to that full stop. But yes, I'm very much more aware of what's going on around me.
Well, there you go. I think if nothing else, that has to be a bonus.
Well, and we lost Steve, but I hear where he's coming from, and that is somebody that's driving 10, 11 hours a day in a taxi in our community. If anybody knows the impact of those speed cameras, it would be Steve. I will just use this as an opportunity again to remind our region that I don't think these cameras are being applied fairly. Just stop with the school zone nonsense, frankly, when there is no school in session. If we can work on that, if we can make that tweak, I think we got a program that just might suit this region. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I am certain that you know that the David Johnston Research and Technology Park at the University of Waterloo is a good friend of our community. And if I'm being honest and acknowledging my bias, the R&T Park is also a good friend of the Farwell for Hire fundraising campaign. So I keep up with what's going on up there at the university, just by the university at the R&T Park. And this little tidbit came across my radar the other day, celebrating 35 years of OpenText, which is a global leader in information management and one of the pillars in the R&T Park at the University of Waterloo. And what is OpenText doing to celebrate its 35th anniversary? Making a $35,000 donation. That donation being made to Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region, reinforcing OpenText's deep connection to the community that they have called home for over 3 decades. Philip Mills, also a good friend of this program and the CEO of Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region, joins us to talk more about it. Phil, good morning.
Morning, Mike.
Isn't life great? You just get a company that turns 35 and they make a $35,000 donation to you.
It's certainly not a bad way to go about doing things.
What does a contribution like this from OpenText mean to the work you do at Habitat?
It means everything. Like, people have heard me, people have heard me yammer. I think that's probably what I do when I come and talk with you, is a yammering. They've heard me yammer for years about the necessity for community, about how the work that we do comes with partnerships. I can't do anything on my own. Our community is what it is and will be what it should be because of partnerships. And this is that type of thing. This is a long-standing partnership. This donation is spectacular and transformative and not a one-time thing. Like they've been long-standing. OpenText has been long-standing supporters of Habitat. They've donated over $145,000 over the years, and their employees have spent more than 2,000 hours on our build sites. Like this is not a one-time, do something kind of splashy around an anniversary. This was the, sustainment of ongoing investment. And that's what we need to make our community be what it is. And to have organizations that will say, we're going to invest in the place we are. We're going to invest locally in our community. And to do that over a period of time like OpenText does is why we have the community that we have and what makes community transformation possible.
I love to hear that. Over the years, more than 2,000 hours contributed to Habitat builds by OpenText employees. This is not a one-time thing. It's just a big thing now that they celebrate their 35th anniversary. It's great to hear, and we know that OpenText has a strong reputation in the region. So maybe, Phil, we can use this as an opportunity to say the trail is being blazed over here, but how can other local companies support the work you do at Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region?
We are always looking for partnerships. We're always looking for people and organizations that say, we want to make a difference in housing. We want to make a difference in our community. There's corporate engagement. We'd love to have your team come out, build on our build site. It's a donation that comes in. We get you on the build site. You get to get your hands dirty and see what that's like. Or, volunteer in our restore. I do it with our board every year. We get to go see kind of behind the scenes on the restore. We get to do some interesting kind of neat stuff. I will say, like on those really hot days, being in the restore is kind of nicer than standing outside on a job site. But, to each their own. But we have all kinds of things. Gifts in kind. We have folks who donate their labor. They donate their services. Hefner Cabinetry donated all of the cabinetry for 14 units on our last Keel Street, project. And we have Diamond J Roofing does a whole bunch of roofing work for us. We have Golden Windows donates all kinds of windows into our restore every year. Like there's all kinds of community folks and community-minded organizations that donate in the way that makes sense. So some of that's going to be money. And if you have money, I want it. Please give us your money because we're going to go do awesome things with it. But if that's not where you act corporately and you say, we've got resources, we've got skills, we've got stuff we can offer, we can make all of that work because it takes a community to build a community. And that's what we're looking for. People who want to partner with their community to build community. We are looking for more of those.
If I can shamelessly mention Farwell for Hire again, one of my earlier jobs many years ago in the campaign was with a Habitat family. This was a family that was living in a Habitat for Humanity home. Their sweat equity obviously had already been invested because they were in the home, but the father of that family wanted to keep giving back, and he invited me to the restore with him to volunteer for an afternoon. And what a gem the restore is. You talk about the gift in kind support and all of the kinds of things we find in that restore. Terrific model, and what a great place it is to find all kinds of things you need for your home.
Oh, it's the best. I spend too much there because our office is outside of the restore and I have to walk through, and I'm like, I do need more of these amazing things we have. And that's what I'm saying. Like, there's so many ways to get involved. There's so many ways to help housing in our community. And so if that is corporate sponsorship and you've got resources to pour into that, amazing. If your corporate team needs some engagement, you need to kind of do some team building, we've got opportunities. If you have skills or resources that you can either donate to the restore or to our build projects, fantastic. If you don't have any of that, but you say, like, how do I get involved? Sharing our work, talking about what we're up to, shopping in our restore when you need something. Like, those are all things that help us continue to fulfill our mission of making sure that folks have a safe and decent place to live. And that's what we're trying to do here. But we can't do it alone. And this is every time we talk about how do we fix housing? What should we be doing in housing? It always comes back to community. It always comes back to partnerships. We have to do this together. And so, excited to have folks who have committed to working with us like OpenText has over such a long period of time, and actively looking for more folks to say, I want to be a part of that. I want to do what OpenText has done. I want to be a part of making change in this community. We are looking for those partners every day.
I know that $35,000 from OpenText is going to a very good place, and appreciate you, Phil, making time on the show this morning to talk to us more about it. Thanks, as always, for being here.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Philip Mills is the CEO of Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region. He joins us to talk about that $35,000 donation from OpenText in celebration of that company's 35th anniversary. And it's not new, OpenText being a supporter of Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region. More than 2,000 hours donated by employees of OpenText on Habitat for Humanity build sites over the years, other donations that have come in, and the opportunity for you as an individual, if it's sharing through your networks, going to the Restore to look for those things as you do work at your home, or just want to add some things to your home, furniture, exercise equipment. I say this speaking from experience, having gone to the Restore. There's that. And then if you are a business person or a business owner, lots of opportunities for corporate team engagement, corporate sponsorship, gift in kind support as well, to help people, give them the dignity of a home in our community through Habitat for Humanity, Waterloo Region. Great story, and kudos to Open Text for celebrating their 35th anniversary in this manner with a $35,000 gift to Habitat for Humanity, Waterloo Region. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, running for Dad. That's what a man is doing in our region tomorrow in memory of his dad, and there's a great connection as to the why for all of it. You'll find out coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is called the Run for Charles. It is a fundraising event happening tomorrow afternoon in support of the Waterloo Regional Health Network, or REN Foundation. The organizer of the Run for Charles is Mark Morrison, who joins the program this morning. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Mike.
You are going to do a 10K tomorrow afternoon, going from the YMCA in Waterloo to the YMCA in Kitchener, and you're doing this in honor of your late father, Charles. How did this all come together for you? Why did you do the fundraiser?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll give you a bit of backstory first. Like many kids, my dad, Charles Morrison, has always been my role model. Throughout my entire life, always there for me, no matter what. Dedicated family law lawyer, founding partner at the Morrison Reese Cross Law Firm downtown Kitchener. He was always giving back to his community, not just professionally, but volunteering too. So his integrity, hard work ethic, and love, shaped me for the man I am today. On January 2nd, 2024, my dad, who had been healthy his entire life, the early morning workout guy, the healthy eater always, was diagnosed with an extremely rare neuroendocrine cancer, stage 4, terminal, and immediately given a short timeline to live. So like many others who've gone through getting life-changing news, shock never wears off. My dad, being the fighter that he was, he went into treatment right away out of like no other. And unfortunately, after 5 months of fighting the impossible fight, my dad passed away on May 31st, 2024. So just about a 5-month battle. So, for many who have gone through grief, you find yourself really confused. You don't know, you don't know what to talk about. You want to talk about it, but you don't want to talk about it. You're unsure of what to do. You get in a bit of a vicious cycle in your brain and not quite sure how to navigate it moving forward. So I decided to channel my inner, my role model and try to turn my grief into something positive. So I wanted to put my dad's name towards helping others. So my dad was a proud member of the Waterloo Region community and thought it made sense to really keep this local during like appointments, for people who have been through the treatment, the radiation, the chemotherapy. There's a lot. He was always chatting about how amazing Ren was and the cancer treatment that he received. So I specifically remember a moment in the chemo center when my dad turned over to me and said, "We don't really realize how fortunate we are to be working with Ren and also be in the community." So I approached them asking if they had like an annual 5 or 10K run. They said currently they don't, but I could just kind of do something on my own and see if I could get any interest. So spoke with a few members of the foundation, and I found out they were in desperate need of chemotherapy chairs, as I saw firsthand when I was there with my dad, because folks are there for hours and hours getting treatment. And it's important to help those that are fighting battles, those battles, to be able to be comfortable, or as comfortable as you can get. So yeah, I decided to run to raise money for chemo chairs in honor of my dad. I'm doing a 10K tomorrow. Tomorrow is actually my dad's birthday. So thought it'd be a little gift to him, keeping the positivity going.
You had set a fundraising target, as I understand, of $7,000. And as I look at your page today, Hello there, over 15K raised. What does it mean to you, Mark, to have that kind of support for your effort?
It means everything. I don't think we truly realize how special the Waterloo Region community is. It's a feeling that it's really hard to put into words. And I'll tell you this too, Mike. It's not just even the donations that are coming through. It's the stories that I'm hearing of folks who, hey, maybe they knew my dad, or maybe they had their dad be affected by cancer, or someone in their lives. So it's not just the donations, it's the stories, it's the support. It's hard to put into words.
Any specific reason you chose $7,000 as a target initially?
Yeah, so $7,000 is the cost of one chair, one chemotherapy chair. So when I first saw it, knowing there wasn't any sort of organized event, it was a bit of a daunting goal. But like I said, the community's just been amazing, and hoping to get a bit more before tomorrow. We'll see, fingers crossed, but just super grateful for the donations. Absolutely. Would love to see a bit more. We're at 2 chemo chairs and counting towards that third, so let's go here. What do you think, Mark? What do you think Dad would think of your effort tomorrow? Yeah, great question, Mike. I know he'd be proud. He would definitely make a joke or two about me putting down the potato chips and getting off the couch for a run, but all in good fun. And it really is. It's my dad always instilled the importance of integrity and thoughtfulness. I still remember those days when I was a kid. He'd take me door to door in our Forest Hill neighborhood, and we'd canvass for the Kidney Foundation. As a kid, I did not appreciate it. I'd always rather be playing Nintendo or watching the Blue Jays or something. But it's funny now how it makes a lot more sense to me. And I think a goal of mine throughout this, it's not just about me. It's not just about, my dad. It's about helping the next cancer patient in our community to be a little more comfortable when going through chemotherapy. And a goal of mine also is just to inspire those going through grief. Grief can be a time where, you feel alone, hopeless. And I can tell you firsthand that raising money for cancer patients will never help you get over your loss, but it can help you learn to deal with it. So turning your grief into something positive helps role models like my dad live forever. I love the reference to playing Nintendo or watching the Blue Jays. Obviously, you're not just going to go out and do a 10K off the couch. You've probably prepared to some degree. I mean, if I started today, like right now, Mark, I might finish by tomorrow afternoon. But what kind of time do you think it's going to take you to get the 10K in? I'm not quite sure. I've been practicing quite heavily. I don't want to overcommit for anything, but we'll see. I love how I picked tomorrow midday, and it looks like it's going to be a hot one. So I think my dad will be laughing from above there. But no, I'm just going to do my best and finish. I was thinking of the weather too, and I'll be thinking about you as you do it. Could not be for a better reason. And truly love what you're doing, Mark. Thanks very much for making time for the show tomorrow, and have a great run tomorrow. Fantastic. I just want to say, if there's any donations, anyone able to do it, it's runforcharles.ca. So I really appreciate your time, Mike. Perfect. Thanks, Mark. Best of luck tomorrow. Thanks so much. Take care. Mark Morrison, runforcharles.ca. There you go. That makes it nice and easy to find, running in memory of his father, whose birthday would have been tomorrow. Lost him just over a year ago. More than $15,000 raised as of this moment. But I mean, $7,000 per chemo chair. So you're into that third chair. Get another $6,000 by the end of the event tomorrow. Anyway, runforcharles.ca. You can learn more. And maybe if you want to support Mark in his efforts, which of course also supports cancer patients through our Waterloo Regional Health Network. Hey, that's not such a bad thing either, is it? This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Earlier this week, it was actually on our show Monday, we talked about the financial situation and, quite frankly, the dire nature of it, that financial situation, for our post-secondary institutions. We, I believe, truly are at a tipping point here, as we've got programs being eliminated, staff being laid off. And what I see in that then is a real dent in the opportunity for young people
to pursue those post-secondary opportunities towards meaningful and well-paid work later in life. I think that if we want to have the educated, well-paid workforce of the future, we have to continue making post-secondary education available. And our conversation started on Monday with the idea that the provincial government may be thinking of lifting the tuition freeze and allowing tuition to be increased, which of course puts the onus on students, their families, to pay for that post-secondary education. In the context of that conversation on Monday, I mentioned a professor at the University of Waterloo who had published an op-ed in the Globe and Mail suggesting, among other things, a part of the solution to this financial crisis is faculty at universities taking a pay cut. I said I would try to get him on the show, and he's coming on the show right after this update from the 570 News Center. Stay with us. 570 News Radio. The rubber has hit the road, if you will, when it comes to funding at post-secondary institutions across this province. And frankly, we are at a point where we might see more than just Laurentian University in Sudbury declaring insolvency. These institutions themselves could be in peril given the current situation when it comes to funding. Jeffrey Cosello is a professor in the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering and the School of Planning at the University of Waterloo, joins us for a conversation. Jeff, good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
Can you put into context for us what this looks like, feels like at a post-secondary institution like the University of Waterloo when it comes to the financial difficulties we're facing?
Yeah, so it was 2 decades ago, Mike, when the grant funding basically got locked in. So it hasn't been adjusted for inflation for 20 years. And then it was 5 years ago where our tuition got cut by 10%, and it's been held frozen ever since. And we all know what the inflation has been like in the last 5 years. And so our operating costs have increased as everybody's operating costs have increased, but our revenue streams have remained basically constant. And so we are now at a place where we have, well, across the provinces, post-secondary institutions are facing 10 or 15% operating budgets. For the University of Waterloo, that means something like $80 million in deficit for the upcoming budget year.
How do we go about repairing this? How can we fix the crisis that these institutions face?
So it was a couple of years ago, Mike, that the province initiated a blue ribbon panel to review funding for post-secondary institutions. And so this is government's own blue ribbon panel that recommended at that time that we get government really out of the business of setting tuition, agree on a rate, and then tie the tuition changes year over year to inflation, and do the same with the grant funding. Now, the government has rejected that proposal from their blue ribbon panel, and I think, there's a good reason why that is. I think right about now, the faith in post-secondary institutions and the public's perception of faculty members as a whole is such that it's a really popular political move to starve post-secondary institutions. It's just a winning strategy right now for the Ford government. And we have to end this stalemate, Mike, because our students are ultimately going to suffer and the province is ultimately going to suffer.
What would make it so popular politically to starve these institutions of funding?
Yeah, I think I wrote this piece in the Globe and Mail, Mike, and if you read the comments, and I don't never read the comments, but if you read the comments in the Globe and Mail, there are lots of Ontarians who believe that universities are overfunded, that we're no longer delivering real value for what they're paying for education, that society needs fewer institutions. This is sort of the social perception, and it's not just around universities, Mike, it's around government and around your job, media, it's around politics. People just don't have the same confidence in public institutions. And so I think Mr. Ford has arrived at a spot where he's hit a very sweet populist spot with his constituents.
I did read the op-ed in the Globe and Mail, which precipitated reaching out to you. And I'm glad we could have this conversation this morning, Jeff, because one of the things that you suggested in your op-ed really struck a chord with me. And that was that as sort of a show of good faith, faculty at post-secondary institutions like your University of Waterloo could take a pay cut. What would that look like?
Yeah, I think it's actually a really important point, and I think you've articulated it exactly right, Mike. I think we are so committed to the well-being of our students that we ought to demonstrate to not just government, but to society that we are ready to sacrifice our own incomes for the well-being of our students. And what I suggested in the op-ed was we take a pay reduction that is really it's indexed to how much we earn. So if you earn below the household median in Ontario, you don't take a pay cut. But if you make $100,000, you can afford a 1% decrease. If you're one of our senior leaders and you're making an extraordinary salary of $400,000 or more, you can afford a 4% pay reduction. And that's what I propose. And again, that's not going to solve our budget crisis immediately at the university, but I feel like this would, again, demonstrate to society our own commitment to the well-being of our students.
I have heard that suggested by others outside of post-secondary institutions. This might be the first, and maybe I'm not well-read enough, Jeff, but the first I've heard from somebody within. And you made reference to those comment sections when the piece was published online. Have you received any feedback or blowback from your peers for suggesting such a move?
You know what, Mike, I've gotten 36 messages or so from colleagues within the University of Waterloo and across the province, and not one of them has been critical. I think what I wrote down, these conversations are happening throughout post-secondary institutions across the province. I think our leadership is concerned about it, but I think, as I wrote in the piece, I'm not sure our leaders are quite as in tune with what society is thinking about our institutions. And I think that my colleagues are ready to make this sacrifice. And if we do, I think it could actually bring an end to this stalemate.
And just so we're clear on this, many of your colleagues willing to make this sacrifice, but that in and of itself will not solve the financial problem.
It won't. I did some back of the envelope calculations using the Sunshine List from the University of Waterloo, and my estimate is it's going to save us about 1% of our operating budget. But it really is more about demonstrating our own commitment. You know, the Premier has said, Mike, that he doesn't want to reach into the pocket of Ontarians to fund higher education. So reach into our pockets. We're ready to provide our own support for our own institutions.
Jeff, I really appreciate you making time for our show this morning. Thank you very much for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mike.
Jeffrey Costello is a professor in the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering in the School of Planning at the University of Waterloo. I cannot tell you how much this idea, how supportive I am of this suggestion by Jeff Costello. I'm thinking back on when MPPs got that 30+% raise, taking them from $114,000 a year up to about $150,000 a year here in Ontario. And I argued then that the timing was not right. You shouldn't have all of the makeup at one time, et cetera. And I was genuinely surprised at how few of you agreed with me on that. And this is why. What Jeff says, if you are making less than the median income in Ontario, $80,000, you don't take a pay cut. But if you are doing better, i.e. you're at that $100,000 or beyond bracket, then the indexed salary reduction comes into play. So if you're making $100,000, you take 1% reduction. If you're making $400,000, as some of those senior leaders at a post-secondary institution are, then you take a 4% cut. You can see how this works. $200,000, 2%, $300,000, 3%, $250,000, 2.5%. Again, we can all work on that math. This, to me, makes so much sense and is all I was really getting at when it came to our MPPs. I'm not saying they're overpaid, underpaid, anything like that. I'm saying here's what the average Ontarian is making. Hello, median income, $80,000, median being different than average, but we won't get into all of that. But if you're doing considerably better than the average Ontarian, surely you can withstand a 1% or 2% haircut on your salary that is already that much better than your next door neighbor in Ontario. For example, I can totally get behind the idea. It's not going to solve the crisis in and of itself, but what a gesture of good faith. And the other thing I love about this from Jeffrey Costello is it reminds me so much of my father and his approach to education in this community, which he was involved in, not at the post-secondary level, but in elementary and secondary schools for more than 30 years. My father always put students first. Whatever decision he made was made through the lens of how will it help or affect the student. And this is what Jeffrey Cosello is talking about. What can we do to ensure that students have the best opportunity for success? One thing you can do is fix the financial troubles. Anyway, that's more than I intended right now because I want to hear more from you. But I'm so strongly in support of this. I don't want everybody making the same thing. It's not what I'm trying to do. I want to bring you back down to the median. But if you're making that much more than the median, surely to goodness, you can afford a little bit less so that we can have better outcomes for students in the system. You tell me what you think. You've heard enough from me. I want to hear from you on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
And what I suggested in the op-ed was we take a pay reduction that is really, it's indexed to how much we earn. So if you earn below the household in Ontario, you don't take a pay cut. But if you make $100,000, you can afford a 1% decrease. If you're one of our senior leaders and you're making an extraordinary salary of $400,000 or more, you can afford a 4% pay reduction. And that's what I propose. And again, that's not going to solve our budget crisis immediately at the university, but I feel like this would, again, demonstrate to society our own commitment to the well-being of our students.
That is Jeffrey Cosello, a professor of planning and engineering at the University of Waterloo. Joins us this morning following an op-ed that he had published in the Globe and Mail earlier this week. We made reference to it and had the chance to follow up with it here this morning. That clip that you just heard is really the meat in the sandwich here. The post-secondary institutions, colleges as well as universities, are at what feels to me like a tipping point in this province right now. We're going to have to figure some things out and, quite frankly, I think make some rather difficult decisions because there's only so much money to go around. Believe you me, I get that. But where are we going to prioritize the educational opportunities for our kids in the future? I think it ought to be a pretty high priority, but maybe I'm completely out to lunch on that because I come from a family of educators. I don't know. My sister's still in the field doing her thing. But I believe that post-secondary opportunities are critical for the economy of the future. In his op-ed, Jeffrey Cosello talked about that idea that you just heard of a pay reduction based on an income that's over and above the median income here in Ontario, which is $80,000, by the way, the median income. So anybody at the university level making $100,000 takes a 1% cut, and it's indexed from there. If you're making $400,000, it's a 4% cut. Because Jeffrey believes, and I completely agree with him, that if you are making an income of that level, so much greater than the median income here in Ontario, you can afford to do with a little bit less. It's, if nothing else, a gesture of good faith. Jeffrey's quick math works out to about a $6.5 million savings, or 1% of the budget line at the University of Waterloo. But that gesture of good faith, writes Jeffrey in the Globe and Mail, would demonstrate the university's awareness of Ontarians' economic circumstances and confirm their commitment to education. And I think that's what this is all about. Just as a side note, I met Jeff decades ago now during planning for light rail transit, like way back in the day. And he was regularly attending regional council meetings where the project was being discussed. I was, of course, there as a reporter back then. This is phase one. This is the early days. That's when we first met. We've connected at times over the years. And Jeff is my kind of guest on the show. Every time that I have a difficult time scheduling somebody, I can get frustrated at times. I'm like, I'm asking you for 10 minutes on the phone. Like, how could anything be, too difficult to overcome? Can you duck out of this meeting? Can you do this? Can you do that? It's 10 minutes on the phone to give your expert perspective on our show. Jeff was in the midst of a golf game this morning, but he said, you know what, I can duck out. So he probably missed a hole. It's not, I don't think I ask for the world. I want to give you the opportunity to share ideas on the show. And Jeff is like, yeah, I can just, stop my golf game for 10 minutes. He probably skips a hole and then gets right back into the rest of his golf game. He took an indexed cut to the number of holes he played of golf today, too. That's my kind of guest on the show. We're not asking you for the world, just 10 minutes on the phone. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. A professor at the University of Waterloo suggests that if faculty making above the median income of $80,000 in Ontario were to take a 1% indexed pay cut, if you're making $100,000, the pay cut's 1%. If you're making $200,000, it's 2%, goes on from there. It would be a gesture of good faith. It would help to some degree, to the tune of about $6.5 million in savings in the budget for the University of Waterloo. But more than anything, it would be a gesture to dispel this notion that there are ivory towers full of overpaid university administrators, showing that they're in this and they understand the economic realities for Ontarians these days. It's an idea I can certainly get behind. Marino sends an email to Mike at 570news.com. I should point out, too, that Professor Jeffrey Costello, who joined us, said he's had about 3 dozen messages from peers, his university colleagues across the province, all of whom support the idea. Marino's email says, tough to ask faculty to take a 1% pay cut when the president of Conestoga College gives himself a 30% increase and now makes over $640,000 a year. In fairness, it's the board that gives John Tibbetts that increase. But you're right. And then in this case, though, it would be a 6.4% reduction in pay for the president of Conestoga College as well. So it's got to be across the board. It's not just professors, it's administrators, anybody at the school earning greater than that $100,000 a year salary. Let's go to the phones. Mary, number one. Mary, good morning.
Oh, good morning. Mike with a mic.
That's me.
Hey, tomorrow's my day, right?
Living
Gary
retired.
Chalk.
Gary Chalk will be here tomorrow at 10:30.
Yeah. Well, I just, and again, it was mentioned, I give kudos to this Professor Costello for stepping up and making that whatever fact about giving back.
I agree with you. I thought he was sticking his neck out, but he said his peers are supporting him.
Well, yeah, and isn't that lovely to know?
It is.
Because, why would the board give John Tibbetts what was a $160,000 raise?
I think it was about 140. But yes, anyway, it was a bunch.
Whatever. Yeah. He doesn't need that money. No, and you know, it's so refreshing in today's world to have someone like that.
Yeah, to actually say, you know what, I actually do have enough.
Yeah. Isn't that? It's so refreshing. I much kudos to him.
Thank you, Mary.
Have a good day, Mike.
You too. Nice to hear from you. Number one, in fairness, I've been saying since we started this filling out of the list of listeners that it's not a ranking. It's really not. It's just a list. But we did with intention because Mary has oft described herself as the number one. And she is a long-standing and loyal listener of this show. But on that point, this goofy, spontaneous idea has exploded to the point now that we have reached. It all started with the confirmation of listener number 46 on the weekend. Thanks to David and Teresa, who have just joined the list from Woodstock. Thank you, David and Teresa. We're now at 70. We have crossed into a new threshold of listenership to this program. I'm telling you, I'm going to walk this list into management. Remember the number that you have earned for listening to this show. And when you call in or when you email, it can be name and number. David at 69, Teresa at 70 listeners to the Mike Farwell Show. All of those ears, all 140 of them are ready for Rob Deutschman, who's coming up next with Political R&D on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio.
I've paid my dues time after time. I've done my sentence, but committed no crime. And bad mistakes, I've made a few. I've had my share of sand kicked in my face, but I've come through. I need to go on. We are the champions, my
think that our regular Wednesday morning 11:30 guest was choosing this song today as a compliment to the team that works here and works so hard on the Farwell Show? I can't be sure, but maybe he'll tell us as Rob Deutschman, political R&D, joins us on the program. Good morning, Rob.
Absolutely, Farzy, and you are a champion. You know how strongly I feel about that.
Well, I wasn't sure by the email, Deutschman. I'm not going to lie. I thought you were mocking me a little bit, but
oh, I would never mock you.
Oh, no, yeah, sure you would.
Although listening to that intro, he says I did my sentence, so I'm thinking I was getting a little flashback to my time as a municipal politician. So.
I was going to say your sentence on this show is not up yet, Rob.
Yeah, right, and then here I am.
Exactly, and then here you are. Quickly, because you called yesterday en route to the Blue Jays game with the family. How was it?
The experience was fantastic. Had an opportunity to sit behind home plate. I mean, oh my gosh, that was a once in a lifetime for me. Some people, it's a regular event. I'm going, holy moly. You've never experienced a game unless you've really been behind home plate like that. And unfortunately, I guess this will be the last game I go to since I brought them bad luck.
Exactly.
So, I killed the rally. The home streak was killed. But it was a very exciting time. Was there with my 3 daughters. Was excellent.
Fantastic. I love it. Good for you. And, of course, anytime anybody goes to Toronto, and then we'll get down to business, but we have to ask, how was the drive? Did it take you 6, 8 hours both ways, or...
Yeah, it was. It wasn't too bad, I'll have to admit. I was pleasantly surprised. We went around noon and didn't really fall into anything. There's a little bit of construction, the 2 seasons, as they say, right?
Summer or winter and construction, yeah.
Yeah, so there was that to get around, but GPS was good, and so everything worked out really well. The only thing is we then went to the cottage after the game, and so didn't get in until about 1:30 in the morning. So.
Oh, and you're still here. Look at you, hard-working guy.
No, hey, they get no sympathy for me.
All right. Well, let's get down to business and the business at hand for us today. And we see this a little differently, so I'm interested in seeing where this goes and how you might be able to change my mind.
How do you know we see something differently before we've even talked about it?
Well, because we talked about it before, and I said
I forgot then.
I'm glad our conversations are so memorable, Rob. So at issue is a meeting of Cambridge Council a little bit back when they were discussing a potential ban on the sale of fireworks like Kitchener and Waterloo have done.
All right. Yes, I do recall.
Okay, yeah. So when this meeting happened, it was kind of strange that mid-meeting, after already hearing from some of the public delegations, council took a little break, and when they came back from the break, seemingly out of nowhere, a motion was brought to the floor, seconded, and then a deferral happened. So the rest of the people waiting to make their public presentation at that meeting didn't get the chance, and the issue has been put off until the city can look at its noise bylaw, which I think comes up in the fall. So the concern here, Rob, is that something happened during that little recess to prompt the motion to defer the issue, and those sorts of meetings shouldn't happen behind closed doors.
Yeah. First off, I was thinking we would talk about the other Louisa article, just so you listeners know. And the one I was talking about was the school board one. But anyway, we're going to talk.
Wait, what did I make something? Did I something wrong? I got it wrong.
No, that's okay. We're going back to the earlier Louisa column where she commented about this meeting and thought it was one of those meetings held behind closed doors in camera sessions. So yeah, we can talk about that, and I think it's a good discussion to have, because what's interesting is, first off, this gets to a couple of things. First off, you have people that delegate, or, members of the public that come to a council meeting and they're a delegation to offer their thoughts and views and opinions on the topic of the day. And in that situation, yes, it was the fireworks, which had been making the rounds through all of the city councils. And then it came to Cambridge. And this is always an interesting dynamic or dilemma. As a councillor, people take time out of their schedule to prepare usually it's 5 minutes, unless they're short notice, it's 3 minutes in most places. So 5 minutes, some townships allow 7 minutes, but it's 5 minutes for someone to come up and make a presentation. And at the end of it, there's always that quiet moment where there's no questions. And so the odd time there is, but you don't want people to think you're being disrespectful of their time because you don't have any questions of them. But it's always important to hear from them. Now, in this situation, what happened was the members of the fireworks community, we'll say, people that sell, had made their presentations. And it's interesting, even in Louise's article, she noted that she thought they were making some very persuasive arguments about not banning fireworks. And so I'm not sure if perhaps during that discussion in that presentation and the recess, maybe some of the counselors might have had a rethink about wanting to get some more information. And so when they had the recess, a motion for deferral came back from Councillor Cooper. And I just want to say there is no nefarious behind the scenes huddle of counselors to talk about what they're going to do next when they come back in front of, what's the play call going to be in this situation. Any counselor can bring a motion to defer. And it could have been as easy as two counselors. It could have been the mayor and Councillor Cooper, or someone else and Councillor Cooper, or Councillor Cooper on his own, thinking, hey, we should get some more information, so let's defer. Now, what happens when you defer a motion? The deferral, and this was always interesting to me, it was the first thing I experienced this when I was on regional council like 15 years ago, was this deferral. And then they say, well, you can only debate time and place, which means when is the deferral motion going to be heard and where, or what date and where? Obviously, it'd be at a future council meeting, but what council meeting? But really, technically, you can argue whether it is opportune or prudent to defer a matter. Maybe it should be heard. And in this situation, I think probably what was the concern was some counselors may have thought, hey, we need some more information. I know we have these delegations here. They're going to present. Maybe there are a bunch of them. Let's say there's 10 of them at 5 minutes apiece. That's about an hour. And maybe they didn't want to have people in their minds maybe, I don't want to say waste their time, but utilize that time, but because they might have come back at a different time. And counselors wanted to get some more information because they might have deferred at the end of the whole thing anyway. But that gets to now the perception, as you say. Well, I think there's two perceptions here. One is what's going on behind closed doors, and two, it's disrespect to the delegates that show up. And I don't think there was an intention to show disrespect, and I don't think there was anything nefarious going on. That was not what we call a closed committee or in-camera meeting, where you can meet in camera to discuss certain matters like employment issues, sale of land, litigation issues, which you obviously would want to be discussed privately.
It does seem rather incredulous, though, that council in its entirety, so 9 members, including the mayor in Cambridge, could take a recess and come back with something that seemed out of the blue and not have had some sort of discussion during that recess.
It's not, Michael. It's not at all. Not at all. I've been blindsided by deferral motions many times when suddenly a councillor will say, I'd like to defer this. And it's like, what? And so, and deferral motions have been defeated. They've been passed and they've been defeated. I think in this situation, and even if you read Louise's article herself, she noted that they were making some persuasive arguments. So I think what happened was, and this can happen, a counselor may have shown up with a certain preconceived notion or idea or certain information they had about how they might vote on this. And then having heard some cogent and well thought out and well laid out arguments, we're having some second thoughts. And maybe they wanted to have some time to have the information considered. And, sometimes we appreciate a little due diligence and time in order to make, we hope the right decision, not the rushed decision.
All right. You have been blindsided by deferral motions before, and you have rolled very well with being blindsided by me this morning because I didn't read carefully enough. So hang on, Rob Deutschman. We'll pick up on another one of Louisa D'Amato's columns in the Waterloo Region Record about some third-party involvement, interference, could I say that? I don't know, but Campaign Life is targeting trustees with our Catholic School Board. What does this mean for next year's, yes, we're getting close, 2026 municipal elections? We continue political R&D with Rob Deutschman on the Mike Farwell Show this morning, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Every Wednesday morning at 11:30, former regional councillor, former mayor of North Dumfries, former Ontario Liberal Party candidate. Rob Deutschman joins us for some political R&D. And with municipal elections coming up again next year, Rob, it's going to be an interesting time, I think, particularly for folks interested in running for our Catholic school board.
Yeah, and thanks for pivoting over to that. It was an interesting article from Louisa again. There were two points on that. One, clearly, Louisa has some concern about the ideology or what have you of the group that looks like advocating for change, and I can appreciate that. But hey, it's a democracy, and everyone is entitled to put forward their positions and ideas and see how many people you can get out to support it. But I thought it also spurred in me the thought about the fact that 1 year from now, we're going to be talking about the election coming up and candidates and all of that sort of stuff. So it's going to be quite an interesting time. And I just wanted to sort of jump on that now and say, look, if anyone's interested in pursuing municipal politics, and I think many people should, I can tell you from my own experience that it's nothing I ever imagined as rewarding as it turned out to be. And, you should be thinking about that now. You should be looking at watching council meetings online, going to council meetings in person, get an idea for some of the issues that they're dealing with. Because I can tell you campaign on certain points and certain issues, but you get thrown a whole lot of different things as you start to go. Events occur and you have to roll with it. Like, Wilmot Land Assembly, for example, was nothing that was on the radar in the last election, certainly became very prominent. Speed cameras was nothing that was, while speeding is always a concern, the concept of speed cameras was nothing that was up during the campaign. And certainly I became first aware of it shortly after, and then we jumped right into it. So, there are so many things that transform your community, unlike can be done at the provincial or federal level. Sure, we all like to talk about, Ford and Carney got together over a fire pit for a few wobbly pops at his Muskoka cottage and solved all the problems of the world. But really, for you and me at the ground level, that's not helping us at all. We've got big issues that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis while they all fiddle. And really, at the municipal level, a lot of these issues that they're fiddling about land on our doorstep. And it's us here that have to take care of the people that are harmed by a lot of what's going on, because their policies, their ideas don't necessarily make it to the street. But as a municipal councillor, as a mayor, as a regional chair, as a school board trustee, you are dealing with all these issues front and center, whether it's international students and even the fallout like colleges and universities and all of that sort of thing. Like that impacts our community significantly. And I can tell you, I heard your call with the gentleman from the golf course. You wouldn't be getting a golf course call from me, Mike, just so you know. But
I don't ask for the world, Rob. Just 10 minutes.
But the colleges and universities issue, that crisis, that's at a tipping point. And municipalities, the other thing too, people should be aware of is that municipal financing is at a tipping point. We just saw an article about municipalities up in the Sudbury area with 100 to 200% potential property tax increase. Mike, we've had what we've had in this area over the past few years, and we're talking about 5%. I think you and I'll have a lot of fun doing this show, watching whether they can get to that 5% or not.
Absolutely, we will. But, I'll say just as a bit of an aside on those numbers up in Northern Ontario and that community that went bankrupt even further up by Timmins, we have to, I think, look at the people that ran for council and managed that budget. It takes a lot to screw it up that bad, doesn't it?
No, it's
really?
not. No.
You got to be a better steward, I think, Rob.
No, it's the times, Michael. The times there are events and issues happening outside of our control. When there's supply challenges, wage costs are up. Look at the construction. We're not going to say that these people in the construction industry are screwing things up, but how many houses are they building these days? It's because costs are so high. Things are going up. It's beyond our control. This is a crisis, not because of individual mismanagement, but a crisis, a worldwide crisis that's happening.
One thing that I want to make sure we touch on when we're talking about next year's municipal elections, and I agree with you, encouraging people to run, it is a very noble pursuit, and as you've documented, Rob, very rewarding. But anybody considering it now, and I hope they are, but they are going to run into the issue of running against an incumbent, perhaps. And even somebody who just got appointed, for example, like Matt Rodriguez for the regional council, now gets the opportunity to have some name recognition. It's tough to unseat that. And it brings up the whole idea of term limits. And I've gone back and forth. It's not an easy one, but I think we should have them personally.
Well, we'll talk about that for another show because, I've always been a fan of some concept of term limits, but at the same time, I mean, there's always the exception that proves the rule, I guess, or whatever that saying is. But, I mean, take a look at Ion, for example, coming in. It was people that were on council for 20-plus years, Ken Sealing, Tom Weidman, Jane Mitchell, Tom Galloway, Doug Craig, sort of grudgingly along. But these are the people that have been around for a long, long time and were able to do something that was innovative and really something that was unique to our region, which was a functioning, other than when there's ice on the lines, but a functioning Ion that was on pretty well on time, as Tom will tell you, and almost on budget. So, that was done by people with a lot of experience. So you can't discount experience, but at the same time, people with fresh ideas is always important as well.
Why do municipal elections matter?
Oh, well, I think we keep saying it all the time. From the time you look at it, I always say from the time you get up to the time you go to bed, but actually it's while you're sleeping too. Every function that's going on, water in your tap, garbage on the streets, your parks, your community centers, your library hours, all those things that directly impact you on a day-to-day basis. Your Love My Hood, your festivals, everything else that goes on. That is all done at the grassroots and municipal level. That's not done by the province or the feds. And if you want a community that you love to work, play, and live in, then it is all municipal.
Couldn't agree more. And that's why I'm glad we get the chance for these weekly conversations. Rob, thanks very much. And we look forward to next Wednesday.
Anyway, happy to shoot off my steam anytime.
Enjoy the rest of your day, Rob. Thank you.
See you, Mike. Bye.
Rob Deutschman, he joins us every Wednesday morning, 11:30, for some political R&D, talking about the importance of those municipal elections, the impact that a municipal government has on our day-to-day life. And we talk about this all the time. But, connected to that, we've got something coming up because I think sometimes we don't fully understand the other levels of government because we don't have the same access to them, right? I am so happy to tell you about the access that we are about to get from one of those other levels of government. We just got it confirmed yesterday, and I want to share it with you. So hang on. Right after this break, I'll tell you the opportunity that you're going to get next week on this show. Stay with me on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. We talk an awful lot on this show about what's going on right here in the region of Waterloo, and with good reason. We are the 10th largest municipality in Canada. What happens here matters everywhere in this country, and of course, it matters the most to us because we're right here, we're living it, so we're always able to bring you guests from our community, and most often, elected representatives from municipal councils, which is so critically important. What do our MPPs and MPs, though, really do, and what's their impact in the community? Sometimes I think that gets lost in the conversations, so that's why I am so excited to share with you that next week, next Tuesday, mark it down, on the 29th, next Tuesday, between 11 and noon, Waterloo MP, federal member of Parliament with our Liberal government just re-elected, Bardish Chagger, is going to sit right here in this studio with us and take your calls. You want to learn a little bit about how she does what she does and why she does it? You're going to get that chance with your Ask the MP session next Tuesday from 11 until noon right here on the show. Waterloo MP Bardish Chagger will join us in studio taking your calls. We're going to take your calls on the Talkback Hour coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly
bad.
That means the phone lines are wide open for your thoughts on an issue we discussed earlier today or anything else that you would like to bring to the table. 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Right to the phones. He's been waiting a while already. Jersey Bill, number 12. Good afternoon.
Hey. Very good, Mike. You're always number one in everybody's book, I think.
You're very kind.
Yes. So I'm calling because of what was stated, I think, when you had the gentleman on from Ottawa, and you were talking about the numbers of the temporary workers.
More than, temporary residents, to be exact, more than 3 million.
Yeah, I was wondering if that included all those farm workers, many of whom I saw when my wife went down to Simcoe. She's not doing that anymore, but that was a substantial amount. They would bring them in by buses off from the farms, and they seemed to swell the population of that little town by a couple of thousand during the peak period of the need on the farm.
I would suspect it does, Billy. Yes.
Yeah, and the thing about it is everything, as opposed to what happens in the States where, they're raiding the farms and then the president saying, oh, well, we have to protect my farmers who voted for me and we're destroying their livelihood. And it's all crazy and confused down there. You have this very regulated program, which included health care, because that's where she was working in a health clinic, to translate for these people when they came in. And it all seemed to go rather well. And also, she knew that, they would be there from maybe April to October, and then they would go back home. And I don't know how many of that 1,600,000, you said 3 million, of how many of them were in this farm working thing. But it just as I say, there were thousands there, and I can imagine throughout the province, throughout the country, it might come close to 1 million, and I think that has to be taken into account too.
Billy, really appreciate the thought and the perspective, and again, I suspect that it would. Which, of course, if you're amounting to 1 million, still leaves 2 million plus by the numbers in a memo to the federal government agency that is responsible for it, and the idea being that they would leave on the honor system when the visa is up, off they go. So it is a larger number. It was one that really made me think twice, but Billy provides an interesting perspective on that. And the guest to whom Jersey Bill refers is Tom Korski, managing editor at the Blacklocks Reporter. He joins us every Wednesday morning at 10 for a little bit of a look at the other side of the goings-on in Ottawa, because Blacklocks covers it like few others do. Let's continue talk back. Rory, number 63. Good afternoon.
Hey, I'm moving up in the ranks, Mike. Ready for another heat wave?
Absolutely. I love this. I hope it never snows again, Rory, ever.
Oh, I'm with you, brother. I'm with you. I love Canada, but always that I was born in the wrong climate.
You and me both.
Two quick comments, if I may, Mike. First, obviously, love having Rob on the show. Brings great value and perspective. Talked about term limits for municipal and, quite frankly, probably all levels of government. Fully on board with term limits, and from my perspective, thinking 3 terms municipally. That's 12 years. 12 years, you should be able to really put a stamp on the agenda that you wanted to go in and achieve, and probably enable some staggering between experience and new. And Mike, I mean, wow, what a great conversation about the university pay for post-secondary in general. I actually started Googling salaries of not only professors but some of the senior management, and it's $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year, and really something should be done at this point. Although I wonder, Mike, obviously Waterloo, prestigious university and a big institution, but maybe it's something that, quite frankly, should be looked at a wider scale, not just Ontario, because what we also don't want to do is open up the market where maybe we're not being competitive to the University of BC or, Dartmouth, and maybe something more on a national scale should be implemented. But great conversations today, Mike.
Thanks, Rory. Really appreciate it. And I appreciate you being a part of the conversation here and Talk Back. The conversation about funding and the financial difficulties the post-secondary sector faces happened this morning at 11 with a professor from the University of Waterloo who boldly, I think, suggested, although he pointed out that he's had about 36 responses from colleagues across post-secondary, all of whom support his suggestion that faculty at universities take an indexed pay cut. If you're earning above the $80,000 median income in Ontario, you take a pay cut of 1% if you're earning $100,000, 2% if you're earning $200,000, 3% at $300,000, and so on from there. And like Rory, I can absolutely get behind this idea. Also important to point out that Jeffrey Casello, the professor who joined us, pointed out in his op-ed where he suggested this idea of the faculty pay cut, that the University of Waterloo has produced companies over the years valued at more than $40 billion, creating jobs and prosperity. So there is value that is extracted from the existence of the university itself. And perhaps you want to have the right people in the right places to continue creating that value. So they should be compensated and probably compensated well for their work. But there's always that question of how much is enough. And certainly, if you're pulling in $200K and you're asked to take a 2% pay cut, you're still making $198,000, aren't you? And gosh, if the average Ontarian's making $80,000, you're still doing pretty darn okay. I can get behind the idea of term limits too, by the way, quickly. I think Rory's 3 terms is a pretty good number to start at. We'll continue Talk Back. You know the numbers to call. Be a part of the conversation on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. We always love hearing directly from you on the show, and clearly you love participating. So let's get right back to our busy phone lines. There's one for you, though, if you want to call in. Mark, number 39, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. I've got a rave. I really enjoyed your show this morning between 9 and 9:30. The 3 songs you picked out by Black Sabbath.
Oh, thank you very much.
You made my day. I knew you were going to do something by Sabbath, and you went above and beyond, Mike. And yeah, thanks for that. Great job, buddy.
Aw, thank you very much, Mark. Really appreciate it. Obviously, losing Ozzy Osbourne yesterday impacts so many of us in so many ways. The so-called godfather of heavy metal. So we started the show with Crazy Train. We followed that up with some War Pigs, and we even played Paranoid as our first 3 songs on the show today. I know. There are so many more, and you probably have a personal favorite, but hey, in honor of the now late Ozzy Osbourne, that's what we did to start the show today, and apparently Mark appreciated it, and we always appreciate hearing appreciation. It doesn't have to be positive. If you've got some constructive criticism, or just plain old criticism, you can call that in too. Number 8, it's got to be Nate. Good afternoon.
It's Nate 8. You got that right.
Nate 8.
How's it going?
Good, buddy. How are you?
Not bad. Mark's sentiment there. I appreciated the songs today, and rest in peace, Ozzy, the Prince of Darkness.
Yes, sir.
Mike, it's my favorite time of year.
July?
This time of the year for corn.
Oh, good call. Yes, sir.
It's out. It's ready. I just went today out to my favorite little farmer's market.
Nice.
Here's what I got. Okay. 6 corn on the cob. I got 4 green peppers. I got 3 hot peppers, jalapenos, 2 onions, 1 very large zucchini, a small basket of potatoes, white potatoes, and 1 clove of garlic, 1 big thing of garlic. So how much do you think that costs?
$43.
Nope, $16.50.
Hello.
I left a $3.50 tip for all the girls working out there.
Attaboy.
And it is, I do go to TJ's, not to plug them or anything, but they have my favorite corn.
Good stuff.
Right on.
All right, Nate. Thanks, Nate. 8. Great to hear from you. It was my buddy Dan who tipped me off that Barry's Asparagus. I know, Barry's Asparagus, and Country Market, not to shamelessly plug that either, but Dan tipped me off that they had corn in probably earlier than many from Niagara way. And so we've been enjoying some corn on the cob for a couple of weeks now in the Farwell household. And I'm with Nate when it comes to this time of year and the produce, the exceptional produce we're able to get from local growers. And hey, that's a pretty good haul for $16 for sure. Grant, you're on Talk Back. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon there, Mr. Mike.
Mr. Grant, what's on your mind?
The Steve Colbert stuff that's going on. I think CNN is a bunch of crybabies.
Why is CNN... Hang on a minute. What? Okay. Why is CNN a crybaby?
Because they don't like their feelings hurt. Oh.
Wait, Stephen Colbert was hurting CNN's feelings?
Right. That's why they axed him.
But he's not on. But he's not on CNN, is he?
CNN.
I think
Paramount.
CBS, Grant.
Well, Paramount. Well, I thought CNN owned Paramount.
Maybe. I don't know. I can't keep that all straight. I didn't know. Anyway, I'm oblivious to the connection to CNN. But anyway, so you think that Stephen Colbert's show should stay on the air?
Right.
Okay.
Right. So is he going to cry to his mommy, whoever his boss is?
Now, wait. Now he sounds like you're mad at Stephen Colbert.
No. I'm mad at
the network.
The network that's whining over nonsense. If I'm him, I'm going to go to. If I'm Steve Colbert, I'm going to go to my boss and say, "Lighten up. I'm a comedian."
Well, but this is the thing, Grant, and you just hit the nail right on the head. I have long wondered this about late night TV. Remember, I'm old, okay? But I grew up in a time where it was Johnny Carson on late night TV and David Letterman on late night TV. And you know what you didn't hear a lot of at that time? Political stuff. You just didn't. And listen, it is what it is. Everything is political at the end of the day. Oh, I don't like that cliche. I'm sorry I used it. But everything is political. I get that. But sometimes, don't you just need like a break? And isn't late night TV and a chance to, hear celebrities talk, if that's your thing? Like just some entertainment. Isn't that maybe a good place for it? I don't know. Maybe this is the price you end up paying for. And I'm not trying to call the kettle black here. My show is not a late night show. I'm not inviting celebrities onto the show. This is a show that discusses politics. That's kind of part of our core. But I don't know if Colbert had to. I don't know if Fallon and Kimmel and all the rest need to. I don't know. Anyway, that was a bit of a tangent. But you never know where Talk Back is going to take you. Right now, it's going to take you to this quick break, and we'll come back with more of your calls on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is a busy show for busy people, Talk Back Hour included. Right back to those busy phone lines. Greg, good afternoon.
Hey, how's it going, Mike?
Good, thanks. How are you?
I'm pretty good.
Good.
Just a couple of things. Can I be put on your list?
Greg, I would be thrilled to add you to number 71 on the list. How do you feel about that?
I'm in.
All right. Remember your number, okay?
71?
71.
Okay, one other thing.
Wait, real quick. Sorry. I already have another Greg, so I want to make sure I distinguish. What's the first letter of your last name?
My last name, Klug, K.
Okay, Greg K. it is, my friend. Number 71. Please go ahead.
I really loved your tribute to Ozzy this morning.
Thank you.
No, that's awesome.
Greg, I really appreciate it. Thank you for joining our listener list. I can't believe we're into the 70s. And yes, we paid tribute this morning to the man who brought the Blizzard of Oz tour as one of the first major rock shows to come through our beautiful Center in the Square. That was back in 81. Center in the Square was about a year old at the time, and the Blizzard of Oz tour came through. R.I.P. Ozzy Osbourne. Lost him yesterday at the age of 76. Darren, you're on Talkback. Good afternoon.
Hello. Okay, a couple of clarification things about the Colbert Show. So it's actually owned by CBS. CBS is owned by Paramount. Paramount's about to do a big deal with Skydance Media. The Colbert Show loses $40 million a year. That means revenue minus expenses is negative $40 million. A few million of that is Colbert's thing. That's why the guy got canceled. Back in the good old days, you're too young to remember Johnny Carson.
I'm not too young to remember Johnny Carson. I love Johnny Carson. But thank you for the compliment.
The reason Johnny Carson was amazing was because, A, he was funny, and he did this other magical thing. He made fun of everybody. You remember then. You would have been young watching him because he stopped when you were probably before you were 20. But anyway, Johnny Carson was brilliant. He made fun of himself, and he made fun of everybody. That's why it was fun. He didn't leave anybody out. Colbert leaves a big chunk of people out, which is fine if you get enough people that still like you to support you, but he obviously there's not enough people. So anyways, that's my 2 cents on the Colbert.
Thanks, Darren. Those are really well-placed 2 cents. Even though we don't have pennies in Canada anymore. Were those your 2 nickels then? Either way, look, at a much different level, same business model, okay? Same bat time, same bat channel. If what you're doing isn't generating audience and therefore generating revenue, it ain't going to stick around. And Darren's not wrong about the huge financial losses that the Colbert Show and CBS were suffering because the show just wasn't generating audience these days. We continue Talkback on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Just going back to Darren's call before that update with Hutch in the 570 News Center and the $40 million in losses registered by Colbert's show on CBS, which is now being canceled. And I get that we're looking for political angles and mischief and whatnot have you. I really do think it does come down to the ratings. Maybe Stephen Colbert just doesn't have 71 viewers like we have listeners on this show. We just added Greg K to our listener list. 71 for the little old Farwell Show. Gosh, I like that. And, listening to Matt's update just a moment ago, and 7 years in prison is what the Crown is seeking in this case against the leaders of the Freedom Convoy. 8 years for the other, with the conviction of disobeying a court order attached. But I shared with you not long ago the mistake I made in my misspent youth out at the airport. I won't go into detail, but the lights that I probably should not have claimed and put in my possession. I'm thinking if I had been caught, that might have been a charge of mischief. Might it not have been? You're telling me I was going to go to jail for 7 years? 7 years for that? Anyway, did I just admit to something I once did when I was younger? I don't think I did. You didn't hear what you think you just heard. But 7 years? Come on with your coming on. Well, we want tougher courts and sentences, don't we? Kyle, you're on Talkback. Good afternoon.
6. Remember, 6. Like George Costanza.
Kyle, number 6, baby. Like George Costanza? How was he number 6?
Remember, because he was like, I want to name my kids 7. Remember? So anyways, going back to, first of all, my gardens are terrible. I don't know what I'm doing this year. I wish I had corn. My corn's high, but there's no stalks in it yet. But going back to the Stephen Colbert thing, I think the other big reason is how many of us really schedule our time to sit down and watch TV anymore? Like back then when I was growing up, but when you were growing up, when my grandparents were growing up, when my parents were growing up, everybody had a schedule. We knew that, 9 o'clock, we knew certain shows would come on. We knew that the late night was always 11-ish, I think it was back in the day. Everybody knew that. Nowadays, I don't know anybody besides, sports like baseball or hockey when things come on TV, because that's a scheduled time that they play. But nowadays, everything is so on demand. I think that late night television isn't what it was back when Leno was around and, like you said, the likes of Johnny Carson and those guys. So I think the demographics of late night has really shifted, and not trying to put down the generation younger than me, but do they even watch like late night television? Could they even name a couple of guys retired or still going around that do late night television? So I think that's also the main reason why Stephen Colbert is probably not having a show anymore, is because nobody watches television like we used to back in the day when we had cable and we knew the schedules of different shows coming on there. Mike, thanks a lot, my friend.
Thanks, Kyle. I appreciate it. Not to get too much into the weeds of broadcasting, but I think Kyle might be onto something when we look at late night TV and those shows in general. But the other interesting thing that Kyle alludes to is scheduling. Like, I'm going to watch at this time. It's the same for this show. Are you listening live from 9 till 1, or are you catching up on the podcast later? And the challenge becomes with those late night shows, they tend to be, like this show, topical. They're in the moment. They're the news or the information of the day. Watching those on demand, even 2 days later, makes them seem outdated pretty quickly, doesn't it? I mean, I'm not trying to pick on anybody for anything. It's just the reality. And if you are a loyal listener to this station, you've probably noticed it this week with Rob Snow on vacation. It's a replay of one of my shows when Brock was hosting last week. So every day as I'm going home, I get to hear Brock talking about how I'm on vacation, but I'm not. I'm done being on vacation. So that's the topical nature of what we do, and the difficulty then, the challenges it creates around programming. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not saying anything's terrible or the sky is falling. It's just, it's an oddity, if you will, and it's one that we in the business have to deal with. And maybe this is the fallout on the late night TV side. Kathy, you're next on Talkback. Good afternoon.
Hi. I catch your show as much as I can, but today I was caught this morning when you were talking about lowering the voting age to 16.
Yes.
I don't agree with that. I think we should leave it at 18, but we've got to find a way to educate those younger, 18 to 22 group about, I have a 21-year-old at home, and unless he's following the politics right on board, then he doesn't know which way to vote. So I think there's just we need more education for that young group instead of lowering the age group.
That's a great point.
And also, we need to know where Nate went for all this produce.
TJ's.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Perfect.
I think
you.
I'm going off the top. I'm going to look it up. I'll let you know, because I'm not shy about giving them the shout out. I think TJ's is just Wellington Road 34. I think. Let me find out for sure, though.
Perfect.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome, Kathy. Thanks for calling in. I'm going to triple check that. My mind sometimes fails me, okay? Anyway, I'm going to get that straightened out for you. And to Kathy's point on the lowering the voting age, great to weigh in on it if you didn't get to earlier. Absolutely. That's what Talkback is for. And I'm with her on the whole education piece. Now, Kathy also said something interesting. Her 21-year-old is still at home. Our guest's argument in favor of lowering the voting age is that at 16, these young people tend to still be at home. Stable environment, so influence of mom and dad, still in school, those sorts of things. It would be much more difficult at 21. But her broader point, I think, is so well taken. I will sign up for anything that puts more civics in more high school classrooms. Like, let's get our kids engaged from an early age. So when the time to vote comes, be it 16, 18, 21, they are good and darn ready to cast an educated ballot. I like that idea for sure. Do you think the voting age should be lowered? You can weigh in on that during Talkback as we continue the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Right back to the phones we go. They are busy today. Terry, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Mike. You also have to remember when Carson was on, there was only like 10 or 11 channels available to watch stuff, so it was limited, your viewing choices.
I think a little bit more, but yeah, I hear you.
Well, we had the dial with 13 channels on, and a couple of them repeated themselves, and then I remember the brown box came out. Wow, we got another extra.
Yeah, but Carson was on into the 90s. Let's not get carried away here.
Yeah, I think 92, 93, but he started in the 60s, too. Yeah. I remember that. Mike, you're a very popular guy, and I know you have more callers on here than you can shake a stick at. And if you lose 1, 2, or 3, it's not it's not going to put a dent on anything. But over the last year and a half, I don't like you said you can call for open criticism, right?
Yeah.
I don't like the format that your show now takes. With you go for breaks, or commercial breaks, or updates every 2 or 3 minutes or 4 minutes, whatever it is.
Okay, hang on. It's every 6, 7, but I've got some good news for you in that regard.
Okay,
it's changing. I can't say when. I can't say when, but I got an email yesterday. I'm really excited. I'm so excited, Terry.
Well, you asked me last year when I took a hiatus for probably half a year last year, and you asked me why I'm not calling anymore.
I know you said you didn't like the format. I get it. Okay.
I didn't like. But
Terry,
Devin,
Terry, listen. I got jammed phone lines. We're going to change it. I can't say exactly when, but soon. So now we can move on from that issue. You're going to love the new one.
Okay. Excellent. That was my beef, Mike.
Perfect.
Music to my ears. Have a good day, Mike.
You know why, Terry, real quick? You know why we're doing it? For you, buddy. For you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, right on. I'm going to play the lottery for that. Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome, Terry. Thank you. Great to hear from you. Oh, baby, you're going to love it. I'm so excited for this. I hope I'm not going to get in trouble for letting that out of the bag. Literally got the email yesterday afternoon, enjoying out on my back deck, but I had my laptop out, blah, blah, blah. Boom, the email comes in. You're going to love it. I'm going to love it. We're all going to love it. Everybody loves it. Ernie, good afternoon. You're on Talkback.
Hey, Mike. Just got a couple comments here about the 6 and 7 years for the convoy thing there. I know most Canadians didn't support it, so I'm not arguing that part, that part of anything. But to me, that seems like a little harsh. Probably it's going to be, it won't be that extreme. I don't believe, unless if you dare protest against the government, we're going to make a big prime example of you, and there's people now, and myself included now, thinking if I could go back in time. I know hindsight is 20/20, but Mike, I don't even think with the information that's come out, some of the results that we've seen and how effective these shots actually were, I probably wouldn't have gotten my shots having known what I know now. And there's almost no responsibility of the government to say, maybe we took it too far, or maybe we forced you, when we shut down the schools and all this stuff. There's no coming back from that, but we're totally scapegoating. I shouldn't say scapegoat, but I feel especially after freezing Grandma and Grandpa's bank accounts, for them to get that severely punishment. I don't know, those are my thoughts there.
Ernie, your thoughts are always appreciated. That's why we have the Talkback Hour. And I tend to agree. Is this some sort of example that's trying to be set? That seems awfully harsh for a charge of mischief. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I haven't been at the trial. I haven't been following every detail of the trial. So maybe only the legal community fully grasps the seeming severity of that sentence for that charge. But it's also what the prosecution is seeking. It does not mean that's what the sentence will ultimately be. However, a sentence of 6 or 7 years for mischief, the charge of mischief, does seem on the overly punitive side. But as I joked before, we've been asking for tougher sentencing, tougher courts, haven't we? Anyway, we'll see where it ends up. Quickly, because we were talking about it earlier, I wanted to make sure I closed the loop on it. TJ's Farm Fresh on Kossuth Road in Cambridge, just past the roundabout there at Fountain, okay? So Kossuth Road is where TJ's Farm Fresh is. Not here to shill for them, but Nate brought it up before, the great bushel of produce he got, and just wanted to make sure we sent you to the right place if you were so inclined. Mayor Jake is with us on Talkback. Good afternoon, Your Worship.
Mike, how are you now?
I'm good, and you?
Not so bad. It's kind of crazy that we live in a world where I can get behind the wheel of a car drunk, kill somebody, in less time than somebody that's naked on mischief charge.
That's a very good point. Drive drunk, even if it's fatal, and it could be less time behind bars. Very, very good point.
And the other thing that kind of gets me is how can you not say it's not politically motivated if you're pushing such a harsh sentence? Every single day you got people, stabbing one another, shooting one another, and some of these people are out in jail before lunch is even served. So I don't think this is the place to make an example. I think we need to make it an example of real violent crimes, people who are actually committing crimes that not just affect the community, but that against the whole country.
All right, Mayor Jake, the phone connection's not that great today, but appreciate you weighing in. And Mayor Jake is saying, listen, let's make an example of people who commit violent crimes as opposed to people who commit the crime of mischief. Fair point, at least from where I'm sitting. If you agree or disagree with that or have something else you want to bring to the table, that's what Talkback is for. And we are in the midst of it here on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Four minutes away from one, and your update in the 570 News Center. That means we've got 4 minutes left. Right back to the phones on Talkback. Rudy, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. Okay, a mischief charge. Everybody thinks mischief is just a little charge. It can be, but it can be also a very serious charge. It's a bigger charge than people think. And people then say, well, it was just a protest. In my opinion, it wasn't a protest. It was an occupation. You know, and those people there in Ottawa did not have a lot of fun during that. You got the horns honking all the time, not the little horns, or the horns from tractor trailers, and you got the engines running 24 hours a day because it was so cold. So you got all the combustion from that whole time. It wasn't fun for those people. So they probably won't get the 7 years, but they'll get something.
Oh, no doubt they will. And Rudy, thanks for bringing that perspective. You're absolutely right. And yes, mischief sounds like my juvenile delinquency at the airport way back in the day, but it does. It's a pretty broad stroke in terms of the name given to the charge or the term given to the charge. There's a lot under that. You're absolutely right. And as I said, I'm not in the courtroom. I'm not hearing the details. It does seem like 6-7 years is a lot. It probably won't end up that much. I agree with Rudy on that. We'll see where it ends up, but great points brought forward. John, good afternoon.
Hey, Mike. Two themes, Colbert and this Freedom Convoy. One common element in each. Both are political, very political. I watched live Colbert's thing when he took on CBS. Power speaking to power is really what the other theme is about as well. You're right in the heart of Ottawa of a protest. And you have Colbert, who basically took on CBS and the $16 million will buy off. And that is why the thing is, they claim, and it's been refuted numerous sources, that they're losing 40. So everyone says, okay, well, they're losing 40 million. We do not know that's true because he was number one in ratings. Let's go back to the Freedom. This is Ottawa, and he gets extra time for encouraging, not doing it, encouraging other people to honk their horns. This is crazy. This is right in the heart of Ottawa. It's threatening to the powers that be. And so is Colbert deeply threatening to Trump. So there's your common theme on both of them. And I disagree with many of the callers. Yeah, mischief, yeah, whatever, but it's nowhere near. Plus, my wife works in the court. She's in a murder trial right now. She hears pedophiles get away with things. And I'm saying this personally because she's there. She listens to all the details, and I listen carefully to the criteria when the Freedom Convoy was going through the court's trials for this very charge. So that's my encouragement to people. Look at the common themes. They're power speaking to power.
Thanks, John. Appreciate the call. Appreciate the perspective. And that's about run us out of time. I just want to go back to that call we had with Terry earlier, who said he took that hiatus from calling because, you know, the format didn't really work for him with the stopping for traffic reports that we do during the show now. There are some changes coming in the next little bit. The beauty of it is Terry stuck around, stayed with us. It's funny how adaptable we are. Things change. It can be jarring. They're going to change again, but I think it'll be less jarring. I think you'll really like it. And I'll remind you again, because we're talking about programming on this show and this station, next Tuesday, the 29th, between 11 and noon, Waterloo MP Bardish Chagger is going to join us in studio to take your questions about the work that she does and the way that she goes about doing it. I think it's a great opportunity to get direct access to one of our federal MPs next Tuesday from 11 until 12. Got to go. I'll be back tomorrow at 9. Look forward to talking to you then. My name is Mike Farwell.